The gates of the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center often whisper stories of greatness before the first official serve of a Grand Slam is ever struck. Yet, in the final days of August, those whispers turned into a deafening roar that the tennis establishment simply did not see coming. At the heart of this storm was Arthur Ashe Stadium, a colossal structure holding 23,771 seats, making it the largest tennis-only venue on the planet. For years, the lead-up to the U.S. Open, known as Fan Week, has been a time for casual observation, a light-touch experience, where families could catch a glimpse of their favorite stars in a relaxed setting. But the 2026 iteration of Stars of the Open shattered every historical precedent, and it did so through the gravitational pull of a single name, Eala. To understand the magnitude of what occurred on Thursday, August 27th, one has to look at the cold, hard numbers that define the professional circuit. Normally, a match of this nature is a zero-sum game in the technical sense. There were no WTA ranking points on the line. There was no gold-plated trophy waiting at the end of the night. There was no official Grand Slam title to be added to a resume. By every traditional metric used by the tennis establishment, it was a one-set exhibition designed for charity and community engagement. The USTA had priced the event with this in mind, setting an entry fee of just $30. It was accessibility at its finest, a price point intended to fill the lower bowls and give the grounds a sense of life before the main draw officially began. But the market and the fans had a very different valuation in mind. Within 72 hours of the gates opening, the $30 ticket had become a relic of the past. As the realization spread that Eala would be headlining the session, the resale market began to churn with an intensity usually reserved for championship Sundays. Marketplace tracking circulated through Filipino sports coverage revealed a startling trend. Those original $30 seats were being traded for as much as $140. That is a fourfold increase for an exhibition match. It was the first definitive sign that the demand for Eala had moved beyond the traditional tennis audience and into the realm of a cultural phenomenon. People weren't just buying tickets to see tennis. They were buying tickets to be present for an Eala moment. This surge in demand was not a localized fluke. It was the culmination of a momentum that had been building since Monday, August 24th, the morning the new WTA rankings were released to the world. That was the day Eala's name settled at a career-high world number 18, a milestone that signaled her arrival as a permanent fixture at the top of the sport. But it wasn't just the ranking that fueled the fire. It was the sheer clinical nature of her recent performances. Just a day later, on Tuesday, she stepped onto a U.S. Open show court for a mixed doubles opening round alongside Canadian star Felix Auger-Aliassime. The pair didn't just win. They dismantled their opponents with a 6-2, 6-1 scoreline that left the crowd breathless. Suddenly, the exhibition on Thursday wasn't just another event on the calendar. It was a mandatory viewing experience for a fan base that was growing more fervent by the hour. The sellout of 23,771 seats is a figure that demands respect. To put it in perspective, that is the size of a small city packed into a single stadium. In years past, Fan Week exhibitions at Arthur Ashe would typically draw anywhere from 8,000 to 15,000 fans on a strong night. To reach full capacity days before a ball was even struck is not routine. It is a market event. It tells a story about the changing face of the sport and the power of the Filipino diaspora. From the sports desks in Manila to the communities across New Jersey and New York, the message was consistent and clear. Every seat was gone. The USTA had planned a casual warm-up, but the fans turned it into a coronation. What makes this narrative so compelling is the context of the player herself. Eala is 21 years old, a star who has spent the summer of 2026 rewriting the expectations of Southeast Asian tennis. Her trajectory hasn't been a steady climb, it has been a vertical takeoff. Looking back to early August in Toronto at the National Bank Open, reports began to surface of the Eala effect. Her opening match there drew enormous attention, turning a 10,000-seat show court into a standing room-only affair. Then came the breakthrough in Washington on August 3rd. That was the day Eala walked off the court holding her first WTA Tour title after a dramatic 3-set battle against the world number 3, Jessica Pegula. To take down a top 5 player with a score of 4-6, 6-4, 6-0 showed not just skill, but a terrifying level of competitive resolve. By the time she reached New York, the tennis world was finally starting to catch up to what her fans already knew. The USTA's decision to give her one of only 4 headliner slots on the Stars of the Open card was a massive institutional endorsement. She was the only non-American female headliner on the entire card, standing alongside names like Fona, Tin, and Jovic. It was a recognition that Eala wasn't just a rising prospect, she was a headline attraction. This was the first time a Southeast Asian woman had received such a billing, and the first time a Filipina would headline an event inside the world's largest tennis stadium. It was a milestone that didn't just belong to her, but to an entire region of the world that had been waiting for a seat at the table. However, the story of Thursday night wasn't just about the numbers or the nationality. It was about a burgeoning rivalry that is quickly becoming one of the most intriguing subplots on the tour. Standing across the net from Eala was Eva Jovic. At 18 years old, the American has carved out her own path, reaching a career-high ranking of 14 in that same August 24th window. The two are more than just competitors. They are close friends who have been seen celebrating birthdays together alongside other players like Evelis and Zainaps. But as any student of the game knows, friendship is a luxury that disappears the moment the first serve is hit. For Eala, Jovic represents a specific kind of hurdle. Their history is brief but pointed. They met at Roland Garros in the opening round, where Jovic claimed a 6-4, 6-4 victory. They met again at Queen's, and again it was Jovic who came out on top with a convincing 6-2, 6-2 win. Heading into Arthur Ashe, Eala was looking at a 0-2 record against her friend and rival. The exhibition, therefore, carried a weight that the term exhibition usually lacks. It was a chance for Eala to rewrite the script in front of 23,000 people. It wasn't just a celebration, it was a rematch under the brightest lights in the world. The magnetism of Alex Eala is also reflected in how her peers speak of her. One of the most significant endorsements came from her mixed doubles partner, Felix Augurelius. Felix is a top 10 ATP player, a veteran of the 2025 U.S. Open semifinals, and a man known for his measured and composed demeanor. He is not a player who throws around hyperbolic praise for the sake of a headline. Yet, during his media availability in Cincinnati, he described his partnership with Eala as electric and said he was pumped for the opportunity. When a player of his stature and reputation publicly embraces the energy of a younger partner who, not long ago, was ranked outside the top 150, it signifies a shift in status. Eala is no longer the underdog trying to break in. She is the player that established stars want to be associated with. Yet, as with any great sporting saga, the road to Arthur Ashe was not paved with universal success. Just 8 days before the sellout, Eala faced a sobering moment on a hard court in Cincinnati. In a match against Amanda Anisimova, Eala took the first set 6-4 and looked to be in total control. But then, the momentum shifted. She lost 10 of the final 12 games, eventually falling 4-6, 2-6 in the subsequent sets. It was a defeat that raised valid questions about the physical and emotional toll of her rapid rise. Had the schedule caught up to her? Was the pressure of being the face of a movement beginning to weigh on her shoulders? But that is perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Alex Eala story. Popularity and demand are not always tied to the result of the previous week's scoreboard. Even after the loss in Cincinnati, the demand for her presence in New York only intensified. This is the difference between having a good tournament and building a genuine sporting movement. A movement survives a loss. It focuses on the next opportunity. And for Eala, the next opportunity was the biggest one imaginable. The implications of this sellout extend far beyond the borders of New York. Back in her home country, the Philippine Women's Open, a WTA 125-level event, has reported that its semi-final and final sessions for January have already sold out. The Eala effect is now transcontinental. Manila is buying seats months in advance while New York fills Arthur Ashe to capacity for an exhibition. It is a testament to the commercial reach of women's tennis in the Philippines and a sign that the sport has found a new epicenter of fandom. As we look toward the official start of the U.S. Open on Saturday, August 30th, where Eala enters as the number 17 seed, the context of her exhibition sellout becomes even more meaningful. History has shown that Fan Week can be a preview of greatness. In 2021, the stars of the Open lineup included a young Emma Raducanu, who would go on to stun the world as a qualifier-turned-champion. Whether Eala follows that exact path remains to be seen, but she has already accomplished something rare. She has turned the largest tennis stadium in the world into a personal stage before the tournament even officially began. When the lights went up on Thursday night, the 23,771 fans weren't just there for a charity event. They were there to see a 21-year-old who has become more than just a tennis player. They were there to see a woman who carries the hopes of a nation and the respect of her peers. The $30 ticket was a gateway, the $140 resale was a statement, and the sellout was a revolution. Eala didn't just arrive in New York to play a match. She arrived as a headline attraction, proving that her rise is no longer limited to what happens between the lines. Every victory, every appearance, and every sold-out stadium is adding another layer to the phenomenon. The question is no longer whether the world is watching Eala. The question is just how far this demand can go, and what heights she will reach before the lights of Arthur Ashe finally go dark. In the end, the story of this week in New York isn't found in a trophy case or a ranking spreadsheet. It is found in the gap between what the establishment expected and what the fans delivered. The USTA set a price, but the fan base set a different one. The USTA planned an event, but the fans created a moment. And as Eala walked out onto that court, flanked by friends and rivals like Jovic and Auger Aliassime, the message was impossible to ignore. A new era has arrived, and it is being written in the language of sold-out stadiums and record-breaking demand. The phenomenon of Eala is here, and Arthur Ashe was simply the largest stage yet to witness it. The trajectory of this young star is a reminder that in the world of professional sports, visibility is the ultimate currency. By becoming the first Southeast Asian woman to receive such a high billing in the world's most iconic tennis venue, Eala has cleared a path for generations to follow. She has proven that there is a massive, untapped market for tennis in her region, and that the power of a dedicated diaspora can move the needle in ways that promotional budgets never could. As the main draw of the U.S. Open begins, the focus will inevitably shift back to the scoreboard and the hunt for ranking points. But for one night in August, the score didn't matter. What mattered was the 23,771 people who decided that Eala was the only person they wanted to see. That distinction, more than any title, might be the biggest story of her entire U.S. Open week. It is a sign of a career that is no longer just about playing the game, but about changing the game itself. And as the world watches her navigate the pressure of being the number 17 seed, they do so with the knowledge that she has already conquered the biggest stadium on earth before the first point of the tournament was even played.